Welcome to the new video of NeuroPhilos. Get ready to dive into a gripping tale that will leave you breathless, thinking, and inspired. Whether you're here for the mystery, the drama, or the unexpected twists, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe so you never miss another powerful story. Let's begin. The alarm in the chest. Do you feel it? That sudden, uninvited tightening in your chest, as though invisible hands are pressing against your ribs. It arrives without warning, at a meeting, on the bus, while speaking with someone you love. The sensation is raw, immediate, almost physical. You breathe, yet the air feels thin. You think, yet your thoughts race as though fleeing from a predator that does not exist. You try to smile, to act normal, to reassure others and yourself that everything is fine. But behind that mask, it feels as though you are screaming in a soundproof room, desperate for someone, anyone, to hear. This silent battle is often misunderstood. Friends may tell you to relax, as if the weight in your chest were a passing inconvenience. Others offer shallow advice: think positive, take deep breaths, don't overthink it. You nod, you try, but nothing changes. The anxiety lingers, persistent as a shadow that follows you everywhere. But what if the anxiety itself is not the real problem? What if it is only a symptom, a visible crack in the surface of a deeper structure inside you? Carl Gustav Jung, one of the great explorers of the human soul, suggested exactly this. For him, anxiety was not a weakness or a personal defect. It was not just a chemical glitch in the brain. Anxiety, he argued, is a call from the soul. A signal that something essential has been buried, ignored, or rejected for too long, and is now demanding attention. Think about it. How many times have you felt anxiety when nothing around you justified it? You were safe, yet your heart pounded. You were calm moments before, yet suddenly unease took over. If anxiety were merely a biological accident, it would have no meaning. But Jung believed symptoms carry symbolism. They are messages in disguise. And anxiety, more than most, is like a fire alarm. The alarm is not the fire. Its purpose is to alert you to the smoke, to the unseen danger, to the part of your psyche that can no longer remain silent. The tragedy is that most of us treat anxiety as the enemy. We medicate it, deny it, distract ourselves from it. We do everything except listen to it. Imagine a messenger arriving at your door, breathless, holding a letter that could change your life. Instead of opening it, you slam the door in his face. That is what we do when we try to silence anxiety without asking what it wants to reveal. Jung famously said, "Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering." In other words, anxiety arises when you avoid a necessary confrontation with your own truth. Maybe it is old pain you never allowed yourself to feel. Maybe it is a difficult choice you postponed until it twisted into paralysis. Maybe it is a part of yourself, an impulse, a desire, a hidden wound, that you locked away in the basement of your mind. You thought you buried it. But the psyche does not forget. The soul will not be silenced forever. And so anxiety appears. Not to destroy you, but to call you back. To demand that you look inward, to face what you fled, to reconnect with what was lost. This is why I say, anxiety is not random. It is not meaningless. It is not simply a flaw in your biology. It is a symbolic cry, an archetypal scream, a living force within you saying, "Stop running. Listen to me. Something inside needs to be healed." The choice is yours. You can keep running, numbing, pretending. Or you can pause, breathe, and consider the possibility that anxiety is not your curse but your guide. The shadow knocks. From the first years of your life, you were taught what was acceptable and what was forbidden. You were praised for being polite, calm, and obedient. You were punished or shamed when you were angry, loud, or rebellious. Slowly, without realizing it, you began to edit yourself. You smiled when you wanted to cry. You swallowed your anger when you wanted to scream. You pretended to be strong when inside you were trembling. This process is not unique to you. It is the training of nearly every human being who grows up in society. We learn that love is conditional, that acceptance is given not for who we are, but for who we appear to be. And so we shape a mask. Jung called this mask the persona. It is the version of you that is safe for others to see. The good you. The strong you. The normal you. But what happens to everything that doesn't fit the mask? It does not vanish. It is pushed down, buried in the depths of the unconscious. There, in that dark basement, all the unwanted parts of you remain alive, the anger, the jealousy, the fear, the desires, the vulnerabilities. This forgotten reservoir of everything you reject is what Jung called the shadow. The shadow is not evil. It is not a demon lurking outside of you. It is you, your unacknowledged, unwanted self. It is your pain disguised as silence, your fear disguised as control, your tenderness disguised as cynicism. It is everything you did not allow yourself to be, but still are. And like all living things, the shadow does not want to be erased. It wants to be seen. Anxiety is often the first sign that the shadow is knocking. Imagine the unconscious as a locked door, behind which lies every part of you you've abandoned. The shadow pounds on that door, demanding attention. The harder you resist, the louder the knocking becomes. This is why anxiety grows when you suppress it. It is not random noise, it is the shadow's cry to be acknowledged. Consider the symptoms you may feel: palpitations, shallow breathing, restlessness, spirals of obsessive thought. They feel irrational, disconnected from your daily life. But in reality, they are the shadow's language. They say, "You cannot keep pretending I don't exist." This is where society betrays us. It teaches us to silence these cries. Productivity is rewarded, appearances are praised, control is admired. If you manage to keep the mask on, the world tells you that you are doing well, even as inside you are falling apart. Anxiety becomes your private battle, hidden beneath the very mask that wins you approval. But the cost is high. Each time you deny the shadow, you cut yourself off from your own wholeness. The more you split, the heavier the anxiety becomes. It grows not because you are weak, but because you are divided. The mask and the shadow pull in opposite directions, and your psyche tears in the middle. Jung warned that, no one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The only way forward is not to flee from the shadow, but to turn and face it. To admit, yes, I am not only kind, I am also angry. Not only confident, I am also insecure. Not only rational, I am also irrational. To reclaim the shadow is not to lose yourself, it is to finally become whole. So the next time anxiety claws at your chest, ask yourself, what is knocking at the door? What part of me have I buried that refuses to die? The shadow will not destroy you. It will save you, if only you have the courage to open the door. The body as battleground. When anxiety comes, it rarely limits itself to the mind. It seeps into the body like a storm that refuses to pass. The body becomes the stage where unspoken conflicts play themselves out. A chest that burns as if fire were rising within. A stomach twisted into knots for no reason at all. Shoulders locked in tension you no longer even notice. A throat that tightens, silencing words that beg to be spoken. These symptoms are not random. They are not meaningless misfires of a nervous system gone astray. Jung believed the body is the mirror of the unconscious, a canvas upon which forgotten truths are painted in flesh and bone. What cannot be expressed through dreams, through words, through art, finds its way into the body as sensation, as pain, as unease. Anxiety is one of the most intense forms of this somatic protest. Think of the last time your heart raced for no clear reason. Rationally, you knew you were not in danger. There was no predator, no physical threat, no obvious trigger. Yet your nervous system screamed otherwise, flooding you with adrenaline as if you were being hunted. This paradox reveals the truth: the predator is not outside. The predator lives within, the repressed content of your own psyche, clawing for recognition. This is why superficial solutions, though comforting, cannot resolve the problem at its root. Deep breathing, cold showers, motivational mantras, they may quiet the body for a moment, but they do not address the inner war. Because it is not the body that is broken. It is the connection between body and soul that has been severed. Anxiety is not proof of weakness but proof of disconnection. When you live cut off from your unconscious, when the mask of the persona denies the voice of the shadow, the body becomes the messenger. Its contractions, its palpitations, its fatigue are not failures but signals. They say, "Listen to me, something is wrong inside." The tragedy is that we often respond with more rejection. We treat the body as the enemy, trying to silence it instead of hearing what it is telling us. And so the cycle deepens. Anxiety builds, the body protests louder, and you live exhausted, not only because of work or obligations, but because of an invisible war fought in your very cells. The price is heavy: chronic tension, restless sleep, diffuse pain, the haunting sense that collapse is always near. This is not mere biology. It is biography written into biology, the history of what you've repressed made flesh. Jung saw this clearly. He understood that the body is symbolic, that every symptom is also a story. A burning chest is not only acid reflux, it may also be a soul that longs to cry out. A stiff back is not only bad posture, it may be years of carrying responsibilities that were never truly yours. The body does not lie. Where the mind deceives itself with rationalizations, the body speaks the truth with aching honesty. Anxiety, then, is not the destruction of the body but its desperate attempt to restore balance. It is the unconscious bursting through the flesh to demand recognition. If you wish to heal, the task is not to fight against your body but to listen to it. To ask, "What are you trying to tell me?" Because the body is not your prison. It is your guide. It carries the map of your unspoken history, the key to reconciliation. And if you can learn to listen, if you can allow its language of tension and trembling to be heard, you will discover that anxiety was never your enemy. It was your body's way of saying, "Bring the soul back home." The call to individuation. If anxiety is a messenger, then what is it trying to say? At its deepest level, it whispers a truth that most of us spend our lives trying not to hear: you are living divided. The mask you wear for the world, the persona, may win you approval, stability, and belonging. But beneath that mask lives another self, your authentic self, your unfiltered truth, the parts of you that long for expression. Anxiety is born in the abyss between these two selves, in the widening gap between who you are and who you are pretending to be. Carl Jung called the path of bridging this gap the journey of individuation. It is not a pleasant or easy path. Individuation is not about being yourself in some superficial, self-indulgent way. It is not about chasing pleasure or asserting ego. It is about wholeness, about reclaiming every lost fragment of your being, even the ones you fear. It is about facing the shadow, embracing the rejected, integrating the forgotten, and bringing them back into the circle of the self. Anxiety is often the first step on this journey. Like a compass spinning wildly, it shows you that something is out of alignment. It directs your attention to the areas of life where you are living half-heartedly, where you are still pretending, where you are still afraid to stand as your full self. And so, anxiety is not only discomfort, it is direction. But here lies the difficulty: individuation is not upward ascent but descent. To individuate is to go down before you go up. It requires you to strip away the illusions that keep you comfortable. It means asking questions most people avoid. Who am I when I remove the mask? What am I without my roles, my achievements, my carefully curated identity? Can I face the raw being I have hidden from myself? These are not pleasant questions. They are frightening. To begin this process feels like dying, because in some ways it is. The ego, the image of yourself you have clung to, fears dissolution. It resists with all its might. And yet, as Jung observed, something within you longs to be born. Something pushes from the depths, demanding space. Anxiety is the sign that this birth is being blocked. So the battlefield is clear: on one side, the ego clinging to control, terrified of change; on the other, the soul demanding liberation, demanding wholeness. The tremors you feel, the tension that keeps you awake, the sense of collapse, these are not signs of failure but of transformation underway. Healing begins the moment you stop fighting anxiety as an enemy and begin seeing it as a guide. Anxiety is not here to destroy you. It is here to point toward what has been neglected. It is a voice saying, "Here lies the wound, here lies the fracture, here is the work that must be done." To walk the path of individuation is to accept the challenge anxiety offers. It is to stop asking, "How can I get rid of this feeling?" and start asking, "What is this feeling trying to reveal?" It is to welcome the shadow into dialogue rather than exile. To sit with discomfort rather than flee it. To face the old pain, the buried truths, the long-denied desires. And when you do, something remarkable happens. Anxiety begins to lose its sharpness. Not because you have conquered it, but because you have listened. You have opened the door to the shadow, acknowledged the forgotten parts of yourself, and in doing so, reduced the tension of division. Anxiety fades not as a defeated enemy but as a fulfilled messenger. This is individuation, to become whole, not perfect. To embrace your contradictions. To live not as half a soul but as a complete being. And the call to this journey is loudest in the language of anxiety. Silence, symbols, and solitude. If anxiety is the messenger, and individuation the path, then the question remains, how do we walk it? How do we move from merely surviving in fear to living in wholeness? Jung did not offer quick fixes or simple formulas. He knew that what has taken years to fracture cannot be healed in minutes. Instead, he pointed us toward practices, rituals of the soul, that reconnect us with the unconscious. He named 3 in particular: silence, symbolism, and solitude. Silence is the first step. In the modern world, silence has become almost impossible to find. We fill every moment with noise, notifications, entertainment, endless distraction, so that we never have to hear the whispers within. Yet it is precisely in silence that the unconscious begins to speak. Silence is not emptiness, it is a portal. In silence, the images of dreams return, the forgotten feelings surface, the buried truths rise. It is here that anxiety softens, not because it disappears, but because its message is finally being heard. But silence alone is not enough. The unconscious does not speak in linear sentences or neat explanations. It communicates in symbols, in images, archetypes, and metaphors that bypass logic and strike directly at the heart. A dream of falling may reveal your fear of losing control. A recurring image of water may point to emotions long denied. A constant tightness in the chest may symbolize the weight of unspoken words. Anxiety itself is a symbol, the embodied sign of the rift between the life you live and the life your soul longs for. To work with symbols is to practice a kind of psychic alchemy. It means looking beneath the surface of your experiences, asking not only, what happened, but, what does this mean? This requires imagination, humility, and patience. A nightmare is not just a bad dream, it is a coded message. A persistent ache is not just pain, it is an inner story begging for recognition. Anxiety, too, is not just discomfort, it is a signpost, pointing toward the forgotten parts of yourself. And then there is solitude. Not isolation, which is escape, but solitude, which is presence. Solitude is the sacred space where you stop performing for others and finally meet yourself. It is in solitude that the ego loosens its grip and the deeper self begins to emerge. Alone, you are stripped of distractions. Alone, you can no longer hide behind noise or roles. Alone, you stand face to face with your own reflection, raw and unfiltered. It is here, in the quiet solitude of being, that integration becomes possible. Silence, symbolism, and solitude, these are not luxuries. They are necessities. They are the forgotten languages of the soul, the tools that turn anxiety from an unbearable weight into a guiding light. Without them, you remain caught in the cycle of suppression and collapse. With them, you begin to see anxiety not as a curse but as a compass, not as punishment but as direction. And this is the turning point, the realization that anxiety was never your enemy. It was your teacher, harsh but truthful. It arose not to destroy you, but to awaken you. It pointed to the places where you were divided, where you were hiding, where you were afraid to live fully. It asked you not to run away, but to return home, to your body, to your shadow, to your soul. The question now is yours to answer. Will you keep numbing, pretending, fleeing from the inner call? Or will you pause, listen, and begin the real work of transformation? What you resist persists. What you accept transforms. Anxiety will persist as long as you resist the truth it carries. But the moment you turn toward it, courageously and openly, it begins to change. It becomes not the monster you feared, but the map you needed all along.